think. It might have been Ratiaria. I cannot remember off the top of my head. But we were attacking a town, and we basically ran through it. And we formed a line in front of the gate to prevent their troops from coming in the other side. And they made it through, because they were able to push hard enough. But we made them pay for it. Although, if I remember correctly, I was grumbling throughout that entire battle because our line just completely and utterly melted. Which is why, if you want it to be entirely fair, you shouldn't play on hard, or very hard. Either one. They're both equal. So we're crushing our way through the resistance at the gate. It's pretty much their last unit. If you've been paying attention, I'm pretty sure that I've hovered over that power bar a couple of times. We've killed about 70% of their force by this point. But they're still trying, and rightfully so. They shouldn't give up. They might, score a lucky kill on my general if I'm stupid enough to put him close. But really, all we got here is a foregone conclusion, basically. There's no way they can beat me. It's just not going to happen. It's the way it is. Lucky for us, we're able to just keep shooting over the heads of our infantry at the cavalry back there. The General Cav is going to make a couple of charges. Namely, to try and hit our Hastati and our Principes in the flank. Suffice to say, it doesn't really work out all that well. We have the advantage. Cavalry in an open field would be able to sneak around us if we didn't have Drusus and that unit of Battalion Cav. They'd be able to sneak around us and presumably manage to attack something in our rear unless I had used a tactical reserve. Generally, though, we're facing units of cavalry in cities for this campaign, or we've got sufficient cav to fight them off ourselves. So we haven't really had to deal with a general being a significant threat to us, which is nice, because I don't like generals. General cav is broken in Rome Total War Vanilla, and it's toned down massively in Rome Total Realism, but it still hits like a bastard if you can manage to hammer an anvil properly. If you can manage it, it's very, very effective, which is why in Rome Total Realism you should always have a tactical reserve. Unfortunately, the way we've been fighting our wars, we've always been attacking mostly, with the exception of our early Greek campaigns, I think, we've been mostly attacking with superior numbers. Inferior numbers. We had superior numbers for most of the Greek campaigns and the early battles. But after we started attacking over in Asia Minor, we were using more veteran armies with less men, but the ability to hit harder. And that's generally been our saving grace, is that our troops do hit harder. But you should really be utilizing a tactical reserve whenever you possibly can, because, as I said, it can get very dangerous if you let cavalry loop around you. We've been lucky in that the way we've been focusing, we haven't been attacking armies that have quality. Well, we have, to a certain extent. We've been attacking the Macedons, the Greeks, and the Selucids, but their quality comes with a price in that the light infantry that makes up most of their support units is very, very bad in the case of the Selucids. In the Macedonians' case, they were pretty much an even match for us. We had the advantage in that we had Pila and they did not. And the same basically went for the Greeks. The Egyptians are probably the only ones who could face us with about parity. They have very, very good cavalry. So do the Carthaginians, but the Carthaginians don't really have the infantry to stand up to us. The Egyptians are probably the closest we've got to an actual foe that could beat the ever-loving bejesus out of us if they really, really tried. Luckily, we haven't actually had to fight any of them that have had significant ability to hurt us. They've mainly been coming at us with missile cavalry and really, really bad spear units. But if they ever get their act together and attack us with a proper army with lots of cavalry, we'll be kind of boned, because the Ptolemaic armies are basically the antithesis of Roman armies. They're very heavy, they're very archer heavy, they're very phalanx heavy, and they've got a lot of cavalry that's decent. Rome has one decent cavalry unit, that being the Equites. Mercenary cavalry can be good if you get Sarmatians, and our archers and slingers are almost entirely
but in battle, it's beyond
mercenaries.
belief.
We don't have phalanxes either. We've got triarii. The triarii don't actually form a phalanx, they just fight similar to a phalanx. They fight in a Roman phalanx, if that makes sense, not the classic Hellenic phalanx. So if we ever meet an Egyptian army that actually outnumbers us and has decent troops, we are kind of boned, unless we've got a hill. So I'm kind of worried about meeting one of those armies, but this one is fairly easy to beat. Mainly because we outnumber him 3 to 1. That kind of helps. But the general basically keeps throwing himself at us in suicidal charges, mainly because he has to. The AI is basically trying to kill as many of us as it possibly can before we ultimately win the battle. Because we aren't going to win the battle. We made 2 breaches in the walls, we killed about 70% of the force before we even got inside them, and frankly, he knows his time is up. I tried to stop all of our guys because I'd like to have a chance to throw Peeler. It doesn't really work out so well. I sort of just let them go do their thing in the end. So stick it on fast forward because really, there's not all that much to do. It's just slaughtering our way through these guys.
So the spirit of his army is broken too.
And then finally we just charge. Come on. Come on, me. I know I do it. Come on. I know I'm gonna do it. Where am I going? Yes, we are. That's right, I'm waiting to see if I can't kill these guys standing on the square. But in the end I decide, arrows are for pansies. And it should be about now. Maybe not. There we go. Yeah. Arrows can be very, very good, but against hoplites, unless you hit them in the flank, it's generally a bad idea. But the general's still out there. He's off to the right. I don't actually notice him until he comes charging back at me right about now. There he is. Oh, and he's dead. Yeah. So Drusus has taken his first actual victory, though he did it by outnumbering the enemy by a bajillion to 1. Still a victory. And now we've freed up his army to march northward to help Sabinus, because I don't want Sabinus over there alone. I'd like to eventually move the army from, and in fact I do, at the point of this recording though, I hadn't moved an army from, God damn it, which city is it that we're besieging? Heraclea, that's it. I haven't moved the army from Heraclea. I can't really, because we need to wait at least one more turn before we attack. So at this point, I'm trying to scramble reinforcements for Sabinus because I have a feeling that that army, or those armies, rather, plural, up in the north are going to make a beeline for him. He's the most dangerous of the armies we've got out here. He's also the only one who's close enough to a besieging force for them to take both out at once. So I moved Drusus as quickly as we can up towards the north because we need him, even if he's not very good, to fight. Hopefully we'll be able to get Galba Senior back in a few moments, because I want to start sending him down to Salamis. That was my strategy. At this point in the recording, it's still a decent one. But from future me knows what sort of is going to happen that you don't. Suffice to say, we start facing a bit more of a significant problem. And I'm not sure that we'll have an army capable of marching to Salamis. Well, we'll have an army that's capable of marching to Salamis, but we won't have that and enough troops to face off against the armies that are coming towards us. Because there are more than just those 2 that we can see. There are. So we pick up another commander. He's not very good, but he is kind of young, so I grab him because he's in Lilybaum, and I can put him in command of the new legion that we're raising. I'd like to put him in command of the one that we're preparing up north, but I'm hoping to save the one that is being built in Rome for someone like Drusus. Or Tertius Cinna? I think Tertius Cinna is the guy we have in Africa. Basically, I'm trying to create effective armies with effective generals. And Pictor could be an effective general one day. provided that he starts fighting. So we move that army and navy. So that's our first legion. Our first legion is moving across to the Asian front. I remember that I've got those Libyan, I think they're Libyan spearmen sitting in that boat. Grab them off of it. And I consider moving them over to the other navy that I've got. I'm not sure if I did it in this video or the next one, but I believe that I started sending them to the east to act as garrison forces so that we can start moving everybody else up. The west is fairly secure. Carthage doesn't have any armies to fight me with, and we haven't picked a fight with the Iberians yet, so we're pretty good. Tarentum has finally started growing. We're finally getting somewhere with that whole building program of sewers and lowering some of the taxes. We're also the richest faction, which is nice, and we've got some random daughter now called Dryantilla, I think it was. So we take a little bit of a look at the family tree, mainly because I want to know when we're going to be getting our next generation of generals, because there are some people who have been good generals who are having children or have had children already and they're coming of age soon, so we sort of need them to be prepared for command, basically. You can teach your children in two ways in this game. You can teach them as students in actual towns where they'll pick up good management traits and some influence stuff, and sometimes command, depending on what buildings are there. But for the most part, if you want to train generals, it's a good idea to give them to serving soldiers in command of troops in the field. It's generally a good idea. The better plan, though, is usually to send guys that you get the choice to adopt to fight your wars for you, because they come with 4 years of military service already. They've already been tribunes. They don't need to go to school, as it were. Even the 16-year-olds have 4 years of service if they're adoptions instead of coming of ages, which is nice, actually. It's quite good, because we managed to get a few generals that way ourselves, I believe. I think we got Lentulus that way, and we got poor Longus, who died in my suicidal charge. He came to us as a mere 16-year-old, I think. Unless he was mid-20s. He might have been mid-20s, but he'd been a soldier, was the point. And he was prepared for the whole campaigning thing, and he was closer to being able to become a legate. Which, I don't know if a legate actually has any significant benefits, but he didn't have to spend time in school, which is the main thing. So I go to build another set of spies, because we want as many spies as we can possibly have swarming across the Selucid front, because I'd like eventually to be able to just go from town to town and grab them in a single turn. So assault them if they've got hardly any garrison in them, and move on. But as you can see, there is an army that has just moved into range of Sabinus. Right there. Well, actually, technically it's not within his range, but it's close enough. So we'll see it in a minute. Because his movement points apparently got drained massively. I'm not quite sure why. I'm assuming it's because he's between 3 armies at the moment, but when I move him to attack, he can't actually make it. Which is fortunate that we had Drusus there, because if we didn't have Drusus there, we would be in a slight pickle.
At your service, watching and waiting.
Alrighty, so we found out about this general. It didn't actually tell us anything. His traits are still unknown, but we know that he's a fairly decent commander. So we quick save here, and we go to move Sabinus to attack, and strangely enough, he can't. We take a quick look at this army composition though, because this is where I'm weighing up whether or not Sabinus can take him. And I decide, yep, Sabinus definitely can. So we go to move him. Okay, at the time I was going, how come he has so little movement points? Now I get it. Because I then moved those Principes over, and those Principes stopped him from moving. Aha. I may or may not have crippled his army. Because future me, I've only played until the next turn. well, the next turn or so. Because when I was doing this recording session, things kind of went topsy-turvy. Audacity said it was recording, but then it really wasn't. Fraps said it was recording, but it wasn't for the first 5 minutes. You get the idea. Basically, this recording session was plagued with problems. Most of them on Rome Total Realism's side, actually. It crashed a good 3 times. It even gave me a blue screen of death 1 time. That was impressive. So when I finally got it to actually work properly and I ended the turn, because it wouldn't end the previous turn, when I got it to work semi-properly, I just went, no, I'm not going back to the previous turn just so viewers can see what's going on. I'll explain it to them as we go through. So this other army that we might have to fight actually has decent troops. It's fairly good, and I wanted Sabinus to go and fight them. But obviously, because of what I did there, I can't get Sabinus to go fight. So what we ended up doing, or what I ended up doing anyway, was I attacked Heraclea. We won at Heraclea, and then I moved the army besieging Heraclea down southward to help out Drusus attack that guy. It went okay. That's pretty much all there is to it. It went okay. It wasn't the rousing success that I wanted. Well, it was a success, but we had to involve 2 stacks worth of troops. Whereas if I didn't have to, I could have moved Augustus over to Sinope and started besieging that instead, so we could keep the pressure up. Because what we got to do in this case, because we're fighting the Selucids and they outnumber us so much, even with technical military parity, you have to remember that a lot of our military strength is over here in the east, but there's some of it over in the west. So this is about right here. This is when I'm figuring out, hang on, wait, why can't Sabinus attack? He had so much movement before. What is this? So I went to hire a couple of mercenaries thinking, oh, maybe I can squeeze a mercenary captain out of this, and then I realized, no I can't, because he already has one. But basically our strategy with the Selucids constantly has to be attacking. We can afford a turn or 2, perhaps, of waiting for reinforcements, so that they have to come into our territory, but they have so many men that we have to keep pushing. We can't let the pressure go, because they've got so many cities over here. As the attacker, if we let up the pressure, they'll be able to fight us more effectively. So here I thought that perhaps it was because Herius had moved into the control zone of this guy. So I decided, alright, fine, we'll attack. So we attack. Turns out I was actually quite wrong, but, you know. Hindsight. See, I wouldn't have known that at the time, but watching this back, now I realized exactly what it is that I did. I should have waited and reconstituted that Principe unit after we defeated this guy here. I'm pretty sure that I give him his speech too. But I cannot remember. Apparently, yes.
Confident to a man, but they die like anyone else, so do not fear them. They have been whipped to the battlefield like cattle for slaughter. We outnumber them
some cattle.
But that should not be seen as an excuse not to fight hard.
So I think this is actually the first time that we outnumbered the Selucid in battle. Like, by a significant amount.
My expense. Today will be no different. So lay into them with a will. There is little to fear, as help is coming. Within the day, another army of ours will arrive for this battle.
Yes, not that it does much good.
Just remember, they are more scared of us, true Romans to a man, than we are of them.
So for this battle, the AI actually does a fairly clever tactic in that it withdraws. It just leaves. Obviously, he doesn't do it just yet, and it would help if I was looking around the right way at the map. There we go. But, yeah, the AI for Rome Total Realism is actually fairly clever. It knows when to fight and when not to. Which, I think, it's not really a marked improvement over Rome Total War. Well, it is, sort of, but it's not an improvement in the AI, if that makes sense. It just seems to make some decisions better. Which seems odd, because it's the exact same AI. There's not really a big difference with it. But it does seem to make some decisions better and more cleverer than you would think. So we start heading down the hill mainly because I want to get to grips with this guy. I'm hoping that what we can do is we can pin him long enough that our reinforcements will come out right behind him, because that's why I attacked from where I did. I was hoping that our reinforcements would be able to pop out just behind him, pin some movement in him, and we could smack him from both sides. So this side would just do a massive frontal charge at the center of the line, and hopefully our allies would come in and do the same thing. But unfortunately it doesn't work out that way. Clever bastard sacrifices a couple of units to make sure the rest get away. So it's essentially just a game of cat and mouse right now. We just keep moving as far as we can. But we don't want to get too close, obviously, because if we get too close, then he's within reach to execute a charge on us without us being able to use a lot of our troops that are very good, i.e. our archers. But we do manage quite a good kill on this unit. It runs at us and basically it melts. It's essentially like a machine gun on a World War I battalion that just jumped out of the trenches and ran across no man's land. They got slaughtered. They started with 240 odd men. They've got 28 now, and that's just running away. I'm pretty sure that none of those guys actually survive to get back to the line. They make it back, but I'm pretty sure they don't actually get off the battlefield. So I think about now is when he decides that he's not really in it. Not really. No? Okay, apparently not. I decide that I'm going to start moving closer. I remember vaguely what happened. I recorded this about 5 hours ago from when I'm actually doing the post-commentary, because I spent so long trying to get the Audacity file back. And, alas, it was not to be. Audacity just said, nope, you cannot has file. But I've chased him, and I thought to myself, really? He's running again? So I keep chasing him. Because, you know, that's the only sensible thing to do. Chase him as far as you can. But it turns out that he doesn't want any of this. He really does not. Clever bastard is just running. Okay, so I suppose those 28 did survive then. I thought that I had a little bit more time before the battle actually ended. But no. We killed about 400 guys in total. He killed none of ours. But he got away. Fortunately for us, he retreats back into a Selucid city. Eusebia, I think it is? I can't see properly on this screen, but he retreats away from us. Sabinus still can't move, which is disappointing, and I still haven't figured it out, at least not at that point in the recording, and I'm contemplating which way to send Drusus, though, in hindsight, there is only one way to go. And that is northward, because we have to take out that guy. If we don't take out that guy, we're a little bit boned.